He who does not know his guidance may be hidden, yet he guides. The moon may be hidden through day, yet it still creates the tides. His influence on a sure heart guides its conduct and its rights. Truly he's conquered what man can't, for in belief he abides. This ruler, to him we would give our hand. This ruler, when with no ruler we'd stand. Men who ponder on this wonder, thoughts they wonder, once Mehdi, with every strand of hope that dies, never does flicker his flame, and with each name the times forget, recited more is his name. Through oppression taunts his lovers, not once has lived with them shame. Steadfast against tyranny's play, with the best piece of the game. This symbol, revolutions he has led. This symbol, to eyes his glimpse not yet wed. A flame hidden brings salvation, broken vision once made in division, in oppression, Mahdi's nation, once Mahdi in division, in oppression, Mahdi's nation, once Mahdi. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على خير الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. My distinguished and dear brothers and friends and guests and dear viewers of Imam Hussein TV, you are exclusively watching Light Our Nights on Imam Hussein TV with myself, Ali Fadhil, every night until this coming Sunday, upon which there's a simple theme. I've got guests every night, public figures, you can say, within different fields of artistic form of expression in honor of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So we've had on the show, if you've been watching and tuning in, we've had on the show a couple of nights a reciter for the Ahlul Bayt. We've had a Quranic reciter last night, and we've also had a public speaker. So today we are also going to be joined by a reciter. I'll surprise you as to who it is in just a second. But the theme of these discussions essentially is to really understand the step-by-step process that these reciters go through from invitation all the way to the review process. I want the viewer to be able to understand what is the step, what are the thought process, what's the step-by-step guide to becoming, for example, a reciter, or the step-by-step guide to be able to deliver a speech, or the step-by-step guide in order to deliver a presentation from the Quran. And so joining me today, a friend of mine who I have seen develop over the years, literally over the years, into a young, promising young man. Joining me on the show tonight is Muntazir Jaffer. First and foremost, Assalamu alaikum, Muntazir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you, Haji? How's things? You okay?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I guess the theme is, look, everyone's in isolation, quarantine, and everyone is kind of dealing with that situation in their own specific way. I'd love to find out from your side, how's it going?
Yeah, it started off with me having tons of work from uni, law work and such. And then slowly but surely the emails came in, everything was cancelled, no exams, no assessments.
Okay.
So just trying to find projects and ways to pass time.
So basically, you're if I can mention, you're chilling.
Essentially, yeah.
You're chilling for the next couple of months. I'm assuming then.
That's one way to put it. Yeah.
Fantastic. So how are you keeping busy then? Because of course, like it is when you do have too much time on your hand. I guess it's nice to prioritize now, and you can start thinking about what's important and be able to work on something that you're passionate about. But from your side, what's going on? What's keeping you busy?
I know, obviously I'm focusing a lot on the poetry side of things, on writing and stuff like that. Obviously with the time that we're in the Islamic calendar, obviously there's a lot of programs, online, live streams, stuff like that. That's keeping me busy for now. And then obviously Shahr Ramadan is around the corner, trying to prepare for that. So alhamdulillah, a few things.
All right. Brilliant. Well, I mean, the whole, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the whole aim of today is just to get a bit of an understanding, a bit of insight into your life. And this is going to be very valuable for those out there who are watching this particular show, in that you're never too young or you're never too old to get into recitation, to start reciting poetry. Muntazir Jaffer is a pure example of that. And so, Muntazir, I'd love to first and foremost, before I get into the kind of nitty-gritty details of the process that you go through when it comes to an invitation that comes your way, I'd love to understand first of all your background. What was it like? Where did you grow up? How old are you?
So I am 19 years old. I've had an immense amount of people take the mick out of the fact that I never saw Y2K or I never saw the turn of the century. That's always something that gets people going. I lived all my life in London. Alhamdulillah, I've been reciting since I was about, I'd say, 4 or 5 years old. So background-wise, alhamdulillah, my parents are the ones that I say instilled this within me. They love the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They love to serve the community in whatever way possible. That is definitely something that was instilled in me with my parents. And having that support structure of family and friends around, that was a big deal.
So, Muntazir, I asked this particular question to all of the people that have been guests on the show, and does your father, mother, and do you have any relatives that are in this field when it comes to recitation? So is it something that was a natural step for you?
Recitation-wise, no. My father, similar to yours actually, is a lecturer.
Okay.
He has he's given lectures around the world, and that sort of, I think it does help to have something like that within the family, definitely. But in terms of recitation, no, I was the first.
Okay. Because the reason why I mention that is because a lot of people that do get into recitation, usually their fathers are of that mold, and they kind of naturally take that step into recitation. So what inspired you? What motivated you to become a reciter rather than, for example, an Islamic lecturer?
So to be honest, it started when I was way too young to understand the concept of everything. So I think it was my mom who sort of picked up on it, I think, and I started reciting. It started with Quran. When I was very young, 4 or 5, I would recite Quran, and then obviously, you know how it is when there's a kid that can recite, and then they call them up at the beginning of the wedding to recite like Consul or the beginning of the program, or whatever it may be. It started from there, and then obviously my school life, funnily enough, had a massive impact because I went to Khou'i. And obviously at Khou'i they had special assemblies for all the events and stuff.
Yeah.
And I started reciting there. And yeah, it just never looked back, to be honest.
And I take it that's where you learnt your Arabic as well, isn't it?
Yes.
For those who don't know Muntazir on a personal level, his Iraqi is probably as good as mine. Uh, in that he can hold a full-on conversation fully in Iraqi with all of the nice words put together and all the specific words. So that's amazing to hear. So how much has that helped with your understanding of recitations, and also leading on to that question in terms of the two cultures that you grew up with? How does that then play an effect into which side you kind of lean towards when it comes to recitations?
Yeah, so obviously alongside Khou'i and my recitations there, I also had my local mosque, Stanmore.
Okay.
And for those people who may not know, Stanmore is a very Indo-Pak culture when it comes to latmiyat and qasa'id and all of that. And so handling these two side by side, obviously when it's the Islamic calendar, it's the same day or the next day, right? Essentially. And so handling those two side by side was a bit of a funny experience, because obviously learning the language and having those people of the Iraqi nationality around me, it then spurred me to sort of try reciting it. And at first, when I was reciting, in all honesty, I didn't understand a lot of what I was reciting, but it was an exploring process for me to learn it, so to speak.
Okay.
And how different it is in terms of the delivery, the culture. So you draw upon a lot of differences, but then you also do draw upon a lot of similarities between the two as well.
Okay, what have you found?
So differences wise, for example, a lot of the Urdu and the Indo-Pak style is purely vocal. Right. You're not too worried about the rhythm and being offbeat, as long as you don't go off scale when you're reciting or when you're putting those nuances. Whereas if you moving on to the Iraqi side, you're also worried about the rhythm, the beat, the clapping, how that's gonna pan out as well. A lot of the Iraqi qasa'id and anashid are all to do with jawab. They're very crowd based as well. Whereas in the Indo-Pak side, you sort of can get away with skip chorus and moving on verse to verse.
All right. Okay. And so this because thing is a lot of young reciters they mold themselves into one particular culture, and that's where they find themselves, and that's where they excel in. From your perspective, I wouldn't want to put the question on you in terms of which one do you prefer, but which style would you associate yourself with?
I think associate myself with would definitely have to be the Indo-Pak culture. It's what I've been raised on. It's where most of my mentors, the people that helped me excel in the field of recitation, they all came from that culture as well. And so I would definitely, if I was associating with one, I would do that. But the experimentation and the different styles, I really, really do enjoy the Iraqi style of recitation.
I think my earliest memory of you was actually reciting with Voices of Passion. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh yes, Wessex.
Yeah. We took a massive van. I think there was who went. Is it down to Portsmouth?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. It was. And I remember because basically with the recitations you had kind of the mid-level tunes, and then you had someone who's really deep, and then you had someone who did the high notes. And I think at the age, your voice was still rather squeaky. No, I was saying, well, this was probably a good 7-8 years ago. So you would have been about what, 11, 12? Which hats off to you. At 11, 12, you held your own within Voices of Passion, and these guys weren't a joke. Like these guys were everywhere. They were doing albums, and they were a real choir. And you and that's my earliest kind of memory of you. And so. Yeah, so when it comes to the style that you associate yourself with, as you were saying, you kind of your voice is used to the Indo-Pak style, right?
Yeah.
So moving a bit on, just for time's sake. I mean, you've now received an invitation, but actually on that note, before we go on to that, where's the furthest you've ventured out in terms of an invitation, actually physically going to an event?
Oh, physically?
Yeah. What, as in, what stage of your career are you at this moment in time? Are you still kind of still within London, reciting in different communities, or are you now going a bit more national?
So currently I'm at the Abstock stage in life.
All right.
Um,
Okay.
so obviously Abstocks are national.
Yeah.
But Alhamdulillah, I've travelled to Warwick,
All right.
Birmingham, and such. But in terms of actual events and organisations, I would say I'm still pretty much London and
All right.
around.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've received an invitation, and I'd love for you to walk me through this process of what exactly you do. So you've received an invitation. Someone said, "Brother Muntazir, please can you recite for us on this event on this day?" What's your first reaction? What's the first thought that goes through your head? What's the process?
Yeah. Well, look, I think there's no sugarcoating it. It's a tough challenge dealing with shaitan at that moment. It really is. I think it can get to you, especially when you're looking at the event. What is the event? Sometimes it's going to be a collaboration, and there's going to be more people. And at that point, it's about setting yourself down and saying, look, you're not. This is not you. This is not why you're doing this. This is all for Abu Abdullah or for service to the Ahlul Bayt. But that to the side, which is of course the most important thing. But aside from that, the main thing I would look at is what is my duty. So I'm a big advocate for proportional recitation. And bear with me, I'm just going to explain that. Is that
For what? Sorry.
Proportional recitation.
Proportional recitation. Okay.
And I think that the things I choose to recite, the qasa'id, the poems I choose to deliver, have to be proportional to the crowd there. And it's a very different scene reciting in a Husayniyah than it is reciting at sort of someone's house or an academic event or something like that. They're two very different things. And also in terms of gauging how involved the crowd are going to be, and all of that, it is definitely it can get tough. So my first thought is essentially, how can I, to the best of my ability, let the people feel the emotion they're supposed to be feeling? So if it's a istishhad, then how am I gonna get that grief into the hearts of the people listening? Or if it's a mawlid, how am I gonna literally take that happiness and spread it to the people who are listening?
Okay. And how would you define that then? If let's just take for an example a happy occasion. How would you then be able to? What's the process? What would you do for you to be able to spread that happiness?
I think one of the biggest things is your choice of what you recite. That's a massive thing. If it's I prefer going for old and classic, which it's more likely that everybody knows it, and you can sort of lift the vibes, if that makes sense. And like recently, for example, Mawlid Amir al-Mu'mineen, I recited Rabb al-Akhtar.
Really?
Like, that's a classic. Everyone knows it.
Yeah, that is.
Right?
Where did you recite this?
Sorry?
Where did you recite this?
Queen Mary's University.
Okay, fantastic.
So they had
back when we were still able to see each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before depression started.
BC, before Corona. Okay. So you like to choose the classics. So basically, just so I can summarize. I like this term, the proportional recitation. So your poetry, what you choose to recite, has to be kind of in line, in tune with the audience that you're reciting to.
Yeah.
And of course, you have, especially a person in your position, you have a diverse audience, and diverse number of events that you would possibly be invited to. in relation to, for example, typical reciters who wouldn't really, like the older reciters, wouldn't really go to an APSOC event, or for example an academic event. They would, because of their position and because the APSOCs would prefer a youth reciter, then your audiences are quite diverse. So how would you then be able to choose? I mean, do you have, number one, in terms of your poetry, who writes what? How do you get it? What's the situation there?
Okay, so now it's when we sort of split into two, if you don't mind.
Okay.
There are events that I go to for spoken word and poetry,
Right.
as opposed to recitation, and there are events that I go to recite.
Mm-hmm.
So with different ones, there's obviously different processes.
Mm-hmm.
With the spoken word one, it's very much a uniform practice. In that, I will look at the event. I'll try and find an aspect to approach that event which I get inspiration from qasaid and Ashid, if I'm honest. But then sort of put my spin on it and present that as a poem, but spoken, so no melodies. But then there are events where I recite, and in there then obviously you have to, the choice comes into play of what it is you're presenting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and so you've managed to choose the right poem. How would you then begin to start with the melodies? Because I've always wanted to know, especially from up and coming kind of rising stars, I would call them in the recitation world. The melodies that you choose, back in the day, it was whatever Basim did, I'd copy that, just so it's my go-to. From your perspective, in this day and age, what would inspire you? What's the criteria, I guess, that makes you think this melody is going to be absolutely great for the audience?
Okay, so obviously I don't make my own melodies. That's one thing. I obviously I'm not at that stage yet where I'm able to compose a melody start to finish. A lot of it is based on imitation, and with Urdu ones, it's things we've heard from our elders, from our teachers, and reciters, professional reciters, so to speak. And you copy their melody. Obviously, every you add a little twist in there. Not to say you change the melody, but you maybe add a nuance here and there. Or you go a note higher, you go a note lower. At that point, it's up to you.
The base is the same.
Exactly, the foundation of the melody is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
On the Arabic side, I have, alhamdulillah, in the last 2 years actually, I've been listening to a range of Arabic reciters. Like I love it. Like if you look at my playlist now, it's all Arabic, and I will literally pick something, an nasheed that I like more of the upbeat style. Something that will get everyone going, something that will get everyone happy and clapping, that sort of vibe is what I normally choose. So I go for normally faster melodies as opposed to slower ones.
Okay, cool. So that means you've selected the right poem, and this is all, by the way. How long does this process take for you?
Oh, days. It takes days to find the right one, to find something that the crowd would enjoy, to find something they'd be able to respond to. It's not a quick process.
Okay, and so you've managed to select the right poem in relation to the audience. The melody is now in your head. What's the process that you would go through a couple of days before, in terms of any rituals that you go through preparing for the event itself?
So if I've chosen something, my parents will bear witness to this. If I've chosen to recite something somewhere, it will be on loop. It will be playing on loop, just for me to get the hang of it. And
right.
And I'm sure you know it as well. Listening is a massive thing. It really helps. So I'm a big advocate of listening to something before you recite it a lot. There are obviously some qasaid that either we use so often or we hear so often, that we can listen to it once or twice and get away with reciting it. But especially if it's something new, something I've not recited before, I will listen to it a lot to get the hang of it.
Yeah. Out of interest, Muntazir, how comes you don't come up with your own melodies? Why don't you dabble with a few tunes or melodies?
If I'm honest, I've not really tried it, in all honesty.
What's stopping you?
I don't know, I just feel like it's a very intricate and complicated art.
In what sense? Because essentially what you can do is, you've hummed with yourself, right?
Yeah.
You've hummed, right?
Yeah.
And if you for example start studying the maqamat in Arabic, I'm pretty sure you know the maqamat, right? Or at least the base of my dad too.
Yeah, who recite, and they pick up on those small things, and you're like, damn, I'm gonna hear it after when I'm done. I'm gonna hear it from them. I'm gonna.
Well, that's good. That's good because I think
it's how that pushes you. You push each other to improve.
Yeah, and I think that plays a massive effect, especially because you mentioned community, and you've got a really large support system. That is really underrated.
For sure.
How significant do you think that is? If, for example, you didn't have that support system, but you had supportive parents, and you still went to Khoury, for example, and you still went to Stanmore, but there wasn't that much of a support system around you. Well, how significant is that for you?
To be honest, I've never thought about it because I've just never been able to imagine life without it.
Yeah, that is true.
In the sense that since I was a kid, we had classes on how to train your voice in Stanmore.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been brought up listening. Believe it or not, one of the things I was brought up listening to was Fatima's Karbala.
Oh, please don't remind me. That's like that. You know when you do like an arts and craft when you were like in year 7 or something, and you was really proud of it, but then 6 years, 7 years later, you think, oh my Lord, how the hell did I come up with that?
And you're not ready. I'm about to throw it back even more.
No, please don't.
We're talking light of guidance days, bro.
Oh my days.
Yeah,
that wasn't my responsibilities, to be honest with you. I was just part of the choir.
You were the choir. You weren't part of the choir. You were the choir.
Actually, on that note, how significant was the choir and being part of Voices of Passion? What impact did that have on you?
It was a massive confidence and morale booster.
All right.
And full credit to the brothers in charge. The way I literally went to them and I said, look, I've got something, and they were like, well, why don't you come and recite it yourself? And
that was just their nature, wasn't it?
They gave me the platform, they gave me all the support I needed, and I'm to this day I'm grateful to them for the way they and I think you agree with me in saying that there's been so many people that have pushed and helped along the way in your journey of becoming a reciter and where you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think the reason why I mentioned that is because I actually, since you mentioned life guidance, I started off as part of a choir, and this is a kind of a message I think from me and you to the people watching, is that if you can start with a choir, it is, in terms of developing your voice and developing your stage presence and developing your confidence, a no-brainer, because even if you make a mistake or two, you're still part of that crowd, you're still developing, and then you can start to kind of move on to the next stage where you do solo parts as part of that choir, and that's how you start to really mold your voice, mold your presence, mold your confidence in being able to branch out and become your own personality and your own presence on stage. So I think mashallah, you've got the foundations to really have an impact on the community, and we're all very, very proud of you, and as such, I'd love to, before I get onto the point where you actually recite,
I think I have lost Mulla Ali on the Skype call. He was just about to ask me a question, and I have lost him on the Skype call.
بالسما هلال خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال المولد كربلائي زين بالسما هلال خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال مولد كربلائي يا قلبي طاير من ضلوعي أزرع من دموعي يحكي عن موضوعي لحسيني من صدق حبيته قلبي يشبه بيته وانا زاير جيته وبشعبان شعوبان ضوى الدنيا خده حول الزهرة بهده هذا حسين بينه وبين الله شقد موده عقل التاحي والله راد يدور والفه امشي وبيا لهفه لاهل البيت فطرة جد يريد يشفى تدري الخيمة والماي سيد كربلاء الجاي عذهن هالمسوياي مولد كربلاء زين بالسما هلال خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال مولد كربلائي زين بالسما هلال خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال مولد كربلائي والثاني المقترن بنفاسي باسمه رافع راسي فأنا العباسي شفوفه ما ردت ينطيني خير تارس عيني هو المربيني وبدنياي عاش وياي انا بزوده كامل ارسم يا ابو فاضل حيدر بيه ومربيه حلال المشاكل للكرار وارث صاري معنى وثباته من اول حياته حيدر قال هالكفال يتكفل خواته عباس الميادين تربية ام البنين فرحة قلب الحسين مولد كربلائي بالسما هلال خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال مولد كربلائي زين بالسما هلال خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال مولد كربلائي الثالث قلبي غنى ونادى ويفجر ميلاده هلا بزين السادة سبحانه خالقه سبحانه جمع كل حسانه وانبت بوجدانه السجاد والعباد كلها تظل وراءه ما يقطع رجائه يدعي هواي لاني بهاي الله يحب دعائه نهر احساس وعلى الناس شفش قد تصدق يشهد للفرس دم ابن الزهراء والبطحاء تعرف وطئة الحق يشهد للحرم كون والحلو اللي يحجون هاي الليلة يدرون مولد كربلائي خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال مولد كربلائي زين بالسما هلال خط الفرحة مرسال مولد 5 أبطال مولد كربلائي والرابع أكبر بكل معنى وابن سيد الجنة جد حيدر جنة وعيون
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, dear viewers of Imam Hussein TV, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I sound like Mulla Ali Fadhil, I know. I apologize, we are facing some technical difficulties. Inshallah Mulla Ali will be back with us shortly. However, in the meantime, inshallah your humble servant will recite a poem for you in honor of 15th Sha'ban and the Mawlid of Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, a short poem entitled A Letter to Our Imam. I begin in the name of God. I begin in the name of God. I write to my Imam, whose address I do not know, whilst my tears along with my ink begins to flow. But where to start? For years I could write, attempting to rhyme, and even if death approaches and I was to run out of time, I will have done nothing to express what I feel. I try and write and I feel there's no way to express how much my heart longs to hear you address your followers. I look over and see my attempts to write to you. Once words on a fine sheet, now crumpled paper is the only view. I rest my pen and begin to think, and it hits. I let my heart take control rather than my mind, and I see what comes of it. So here I write to my Imam, whose address I do not know. Whilst my tears along with my ink begins to flow, I begin by expressing my longing for you, my dream for the dream of all Shi'as to come true. Time itself awaits. The earth doesn't rotate because it's too heavily filled with hate and oppression. When will you come? When will you come is the question on my tongue. But then I look in the mirror. When will you come? I ask myself, but then I look in the mirror. Why would you come? 'Cause it is said that you weep upon seeing our deeds, yet in our complete ignorance we fail to take any form of heed. We go about our lives as if you don't exist, and then we sit in lines of prayer and we insist that our hearts yearn for you. I can say this with confidence, that if you were here, I would do nothing to make you upset. But you are here. So why do I make you upset? Now I understand that we are not the ones waiting. Now I understand that we aren't the ones waiting. Who's waiting is you, for us to realize, snap out of our delusion and stop the compromise of principles, because we should be actively preparing for you to come. So now what to write? I can express my longing, but the fault is my own, and maybe once the seeds of reform are sown, you will come. So this is more of an apology. This is more of an apology, a sigh of regret and tears of remorse, a pledge to change, for without a saddle there is no horse fit for a rider. So maybe if I change, you'll have me to rely on. Oh, my Imam, I'm sorry. The words of my heart keep bringing tears to my eyes. All this time I've been praying, and yet it's only now that I realize that my own deeds are the obstruction to my own prayers. So next time I say Ajil Faraja, next time I say Ajil Faraja, I will ask, am I really ready? Am I really ready? For us to realize, snap out of our delusion and stop the compromise of principles, because we should be actively prepared. Hey, see Mulla Ali Fadhil. So now
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam.
My sincere apologies. Technical issues did take the better of me. I apologize. It's just that I had my headphones wired headphones into the phone. And, yeah, sorry about that. No, I was actually on the other phone. I was listening to your recitation. So please carry on where you left off.
I just finished my poem.
Oh, you just finished?
You joined. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, by the way, that's spoken word, right?
Yeah.
I'm not leaving you until I hear your voice. So please don't hide it away from us.
So this is a qasida that is very well known, but it's also very, very close to my heart. It's Arabic, but it's very close to my heart because it's something that I love, and at any point in the year I can relate with, let alone the middle of Sha'ban. So if you allow me, Mulla, لا تسمح.
Yeah.
للغاضرية اخذوني معاكم للغاضرية اخذوني معاكم للغاضرية الله يزور اخذوني معاكم بالله يزور اخذوني معاكم من دوني لا يمشي عنكم خلوني خادم ويا خدمكم خلوني خادم ويا خدمكم بس وصلوني للغاضرية لا تحرموني من الزيارة قلبي يا زوار طفوها ناره شوفوا لي دمعة سووا لي إشارة لا تتركوني بعبره جرية للغاضرية خذوني معاكم للغاضرية جنة these words جنة ضريحك يا سيد حسين واللي يطبها لازم يقرعن زلاته تغفر لو بالملايين وين شفاعة هذه البرية للغاضرية للغاضرية خذوني معاكم للغاضرية.
Ahsant, mashallah, mashallah. As I mentioned, the support system that you have and the voice that you have, mashallah, God gifted you with a talent. So I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep you safe, healthy, and always within the support unit of your family and the community as well. And look, apologies for that technical issue.
No problem.
But really do appreciate your time, Muntazir, and hopefully your coming months are filled with loads of projects and ways to serve the community. So we look forward to hearing from you very, very soon. Is there something on the horizon that maybe we should know about?
No, nothing in that sense. But inshallah, if God gives us a tawfiq. But before I leave, Mulla, I just want to say it has been an absolute honor because, and I said this when we were talking as well, but I was actually literally raised listening to your voice.
Mashallah.
So yeah, I guess thank you very much for everything you've inspired me with.
No problem.
And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that even your years are filled with khidmat Abi Abdullah Hussein.
Thank you very much for those warm words. They are actually truly touching, so I do appreciate them. But everything that we do is for the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Ahlul Bayt. And so whatever we will, myself, yourself, whoever they are, anything that we do is in honor of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah. And hopefully that intention is very, very clear.
Inshallah.
All right, Muntazir, thank you so much for your time. Inshallah, we'll see you very, very soon. Thank you.
Inshallah, take care, Mulla.
All right, thank you. So that was Muntazir Jaffer, young and inspiring, and also aspiring to become one of the greats within the recitation world. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may Allah give him a long life in servitude for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. On that note, I do bid you good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And please do look forward to tomorrow at 10:30 p.m. UK for another similar show. And hopefully, without any technical issues, we will have a quiz. I know we haven't had one for the last 3 days. And so hopefully, we will have a quiz. But once again, I'd like to thank Muntazir Jaffer for his delivery today. A great insight into a young speaker. And again, the benefit for the audience is to be able to understand what are the steps that these young reciters go through from invitation all the way to pulpit, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and to really get an understanding of what they think and what their thought process is so that you can take it into your own lives, inshallah, as well. Okay, so you're watching Light Our Nights with myself, Fadhil, and I bid you again a good evening, good afternoon, and a good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.